Hi, I'm going to read the same story at 3 different levels so you can see where you're at and you can practice your reading skills, your listening skills, maybe even some shadowing practice, and make sure to download all the resources. I'll put a link in the comments and the description. Okay, let's start. All right, well, let's start, everyone. The title of the story is The Man Who Listened to His Calling. And I created this story because it's about someone who I really look up to and respect, a person who changed my life. So I'm going to really enjoy reading this story to you all. All right, Chapter 1, The Day They Said No. In 1988, Paulo Coelho left a small office in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He was holding his book, The Alchemist. The publisher had said no. Too strange, one man told him. People won't understand it. Outside, the city was hot and noisy. Cars passed, people talked. Life went on, but Paulo felt sad inside. He remembered a line he had written in his book. When you really want something, life helps you to get it. He used to believe those words, but now he was not so sure. Paulo was 40 years old. He had tried many things before. He wrote songs, travelled, and looked for answers in life. But this moment hurt more than any other. Still, as he walked home, he told himself, if nobody wants this book, I will keep writing anyway. He did not know it then, but The Alchemist would one day become one of the most famous books in the world. Millions of people would read it in many languages. It was a story about a young shepherd searching for treasure, but really it was about a man searching for himself, just like Paulo. Chapter 2, The Boy Who Refused to be Normal. Before The Alchemist, before fame, Paulo Coelho was just a boy who felt different. He was born in 1947 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. His family was strict and religious. His father was an engineer who liked rules and order. His mother was kind, but she worried about him. Paulo loved to write stories. He wanted to be a writer. But when he told his parents, they did not understand. They said, writers do not make money. You must be a lawyer or an engineer. Paulo felt sad. He did not want that life. His parents thought something was wrong with him. They wanted to help him, so they sent him to a hospital. He was still a teenager, scared and confused. He tried to tell the doctors that he was not sick. He just wanted to live differently, but nobody listened. He stayed there many times before he was free. Years later, when Paulo wrote about following your dream, those words came from his own pain. He knew what it felt like to be told that your dream is wrong. While other young people studied for normal jobs, Paulo searched for meaning. He wrote songs, read many books, and met people who thought differently. He was lost for a long time, but one day all those experiences would help him find himself. Chapter 3, The Road to Himself. In 1986, Paulo Coelho went on a long walk in Spain. It was called the Road to Santiago. Many people take this journey to think about life and find peace. Paulo walked for hundreds of kilometers. Some days he met friendly travelers and shared stories with them. Other days he walked alone, tired and quiet. The road was not easy. His feet hurt. The weather changed quickly, but he felt something growing inside him. When he was alone, he started to notice small things, a smile from a stranger, the sound of his steps, the light in the sky. These small things felt special, like messages from life. He began to believe that the world was speaking to him in a quiet way. After many weeks, Paulo reached the end of the road, but he realized something important. Peace does not come when you finish the journey. It starts the moment you begin to walk. This trip changed him deeply. He started to listen to life more carefully. He began to trust his heart again. Chapter 4. When the world started to listen. When Paulo returned to Brazil, he was not the same man. The long walk in Spain had changed him. He began to write with a new purpose. He no longer wanted to be famous or rich. He just wanted to share what he had learned on the road. In his small apartment, he wrote The Alchemist. It took him only 2 weeks. The story was simple but full of hope. He believed people would understand it. But when the book was published, almost nobody bought it. Only a few hundred copies were sold. Soon, the publisher gave up on him. Paulo felt sad, but did not stop. He trusted the quiet voice inside him that said, "Keep going." 1 year later, another publisher gave his book a new chance. This time, something special happened. A teacher gave it to a student. A friend shared it with another friend. The book started to travel around the world. Slowly, readers everywhere began to love it. They saw their own dreams in the story of the young shepherd. Paulo's book became a bridge between his heart and the hearts of millions of people. The world had finally started to listen. Chapter 5. The Language of the Heart. Fame came slowly for Paulo Coelho. It did not come with noise or celebration. It came quietly, like a soft voice. But when it arrived, Paulo was calm. He no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. He kept a simple life. Every morning he woke up, walked, and wrote. He believed that ideas do not come when you chase them. They come when you are quiet and ready to listen. Some people said his books were too simple. They said he wrote only for dreamers. But Paulo did not mind. He knew that simple words can speak deeply to the heart. Through books like Breeder and Veronica Decides to Die, he asked one question again and again. What does it mean to live a life that truly feels like your own? For Paulo, success was not about money or fame. It was about helping people believe in themselves again. He once said that every person speaks a language of the heart. It is the quiet voice inside us that shows the way when we feel lost. It is the voice that helps us become who we really are. Lessons learned. Lesson 1. Follow your dream even when others say no. When Paulo said he wanted to be a writer, people laughed at him. His parents did not understand. Publishers said no to his book. But he listened to his heart and kept going. Lesson 2. You find your way by walking it. Paulo did not wait for a perfect plan. He started walking the road in Spain, and the answers came while he walked. We learn who we are when we take the first step. Lesson 3. Failure can help you grow. Every no and every mistake helped Paulo understand life better. Without those hard times, his stories would not touch so many people. Lesson 4. Simple words can be powerful. Many writers try to be clever or complex. Paulo showed that clear, honest words can reach people's hearts. Lesson 5. Listen to life. He learned that life often speaks softly. When you trust yourself and stay open, good things begin to happen. Final message. Paulo Coelho's story is not just about a man who became famous. It is about someone who never stopped believing in his dream. He believed that life has meaning, even when it is difficult to see. He believed that our mistakes can teach us and that dreams can guide us. His life reminds us that faith is not about being sure of anything. It is about trusting the journey. You do not need to know every step before you start walking. You just need to take the first one. In The Alchemist, the young shepherd travels far to find treasure. In the end, he learns that the treasure was inside him all along. Paulo's life was the same. He searched for something outside, but he found it inside himself. Life does not always speak loudly. Sometimes it whispers. But if you take the time to listen, it will always guide you home. Okay, that is the end of the beginner story, everyone. Make sure to get the PDF with the vocabulary and comprehension activities. Right, time for the intermediate level. Right, let's start with the intermediate level story. The level of this story is a high B1 level, close to B2. I know that many of you watching are at this level, so I wanted it to be slightly, a little bit, right, challenging for B1 learners. Okay, the title is the same, and let's get into this amazing story. Ready? Chapter 1, The Rejection. In 1988, Paulo Coelho left a small publishing house in Rio de Janeiro with a book in his hands. It was called The Alchemist, and it had just been rejected. Too strange, one editor said. Too spiritual. Nobody wants to read this. Outside, the city was loud and bright, full of people and traffic. Life went on as usual. But inside Paulo, something had changed. He remembered a line he had written. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. He used to believe those words, but now they felt far away, like a dream that was fading. Paulo was 40 years old and had already failed many times. He had been a songwriter, a traveler, a dreamer, always searching for meaning. But this rejection hurt more than any before. Still, as he walked home, he made himself a quiet promise. If nobody wanted to publish The Alchemist, he would keep writing anyway. He didn't know it yet, but that same book, the one everyone had called Too Spiritual, would later sell more than 60 million copies and be translated into over 80 languages. It was the story of a young shepherd looking for treasure, but really it was the story of a man searching for himself, just like Paulo. Chapter 2. The Boy Who Refused to Be Normal. Long before The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho was a boy who didn't fit in. He was born in 1947 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, into a strict Catholic family. His father was an engineer who loved logic and order. His mother was kind, but worried about his strange ideas. While other children dreamed about being doctors or lawyers, Paulo dreamed about writing stories. When he told his parents, they thought he was crazy. They told him the world didn't need dreamers. It needed people with serious jobs. They loved him, but they didn't understand him. So when he kept talking about becoming a writer, they decided to send him to a mental hospital. Paulo was still a teenager, scared, confused, and alone, when the doors closed behind him. He tried to explain that he wasn't sick, he just wanted to live differently, but nobody listened. He was sent there 3 times before being released for good. Years later, he would write about the importance of following your personal legend, your true purpose in life. Those words came from his own pain. He knew what it felt like to be judged for hearing a voice that others couldn't hear. He had been lost, but one day that experience would help millions of readers find themselves. Chapter 3. The Road to Himself. In 1986, Paulo Coelho was walking alone on a long road in northern Spain. He was on a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, a journey of more than 500 miles. It wasn't something he had planned for years. He had just felt a strong inner voice telling him to go. He didn't know exactly why, but he trusted that feeling. The journey was hard. Some days he met kind strangers and shared stories. Other days he walked for hours in silence, tired and lonely. But in that silence, something began to change inside him. He started to notice small signs. A smile from a stranger, a sudden change in the weather, the sound of his own footsteps. They weren't miracles, but they felt like messages from life itself. He realized that the universe is always trying to speak to us. The problem is that most people are too busy or too afraid to listen. That walk across Spain helped him see that meaning doesn't come from reaching the end of the road. It begins the moment you decide to take the first step. Chapter 4. When the world started to listen. When Paulo returned to Brazil, he was not the same man. The long walk in Spain had changed him. He began to write with a new purpose, not to be famous or rich, but to share what he had learned on the road. In his small apartment, he wrote The Alchemist in just 2 weeks. It was a simple story, but full of the wisdom he had discovered on his journey. He believed it could touch people's hearts. When the book was published, almost nobody bought it. Only a few hundred copies were sold, and soon the publisher gave up on him. It could have ended there. He was 40 years old, broke, and tired of fighting for his dream, but something deep inside told him not to stop. A year later, a new publisher decided to give the book another chance. Slowly, people began to share it with friends. A teacher gave it to a student. A traveller passed it to another traveller. Soon the book began to travel the world. Readers everywhere saw their own dreams in the story of the young shepherd. Paulo's book became a bridge between his heart and millions of others. The world at last had started to listen. Chapter 5. The Language of the Heart. Fame came slowly, almost quietly, as if it didn't want to surprise him. But when it arrived, Paulo Coelho was calm. He no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. Every morning he continued his simple routine, walking, thinking, and writing. He believed that ideas don't come when you chase them. They come when you are quiet enough to listen. Many critics said his books were too simple or emotional. They said he wrote for dreamers, not for serious readers. But Paulo didn't mind. He knew that the truth doesn't need to be complicated to touch people's hearts. Through stories like Veronica Decides to Die, Breda, and The Valkyries, he kept asking the same question. What does it mean to live a life that truly belongs to you? For him, success wasn't about money or awards. It was about helping people believe in themselves again. He once said that every person speaks a language of the heart. It's the voice that tells us when we are on the right path, the one that leads us to who we are meant to be. Lessons learned. Lesson 1. Follow your calling, even when others don't understand. When Paulo said he wanted to be a writer, people laughed at him. His parents thought he was crazy, and publishers rejected him, but he listened to his heart and followed his dream anyway. Lesson 2. You find your path by walking it. Paulo didn't wait for a perfect plan. He started his journey and learned along the way. Real understanding comes when you take action, not when you stay still. Lesson 3. Failure is part of success. Being rejected and misunderstood helped him grow. Every hard moment gave him more wisdom and made his stories stronger. Lesson 4. Keep things simple. Paulo's books are easy to read, but they carry deep truth. Sometimes the simplest words can reach the deepest places in our hearts. Lesson 5. Listen to life. He learned that when you trust yourself and stay open to what happens, the world begins to help you. Life speaks quietly, but if you listen, you'll hear it guiding you. Final message. Paulo Coelho's story is not just about becoming a famous writer. It's about believing in something you can't always see. He believed that dreams matter, that our mistakes can teach us, and that we all have a special purpose waiting to be discovered. His life reminds us that faith is not about being sure of everything. It's about trusting the journey. You don't need to know every step before you start walking. You just need the courage to begin. In The Alchemist, the shepherd travels far to find treasure, only to learn it was inside him all along. Paulo's life was the same, a search that led him back to himself. Life often whispers softly, not loudly. But if you take the time to listen, it will always guide you home. Right, that is the end of the intermediate level. I will talk a bit more at the end of this video about why I chose his story and how I feel about it all. So please stick around for the end. Right, it's time for the advanced version. Are you ready? Let's go. Right, welcome to the advanced version of the story, and well done for sticking around, right, for staying here with me. So that really shows that you're serious about improving your English. So hats off to you. This story is at a strong C1 level, so if you are an intermediate learner, I recommend you getting the PDF because it has the vocabulary list and the comprehension activities, as well as the flashcards. So it means you can learn all these new words and make them your own, because that's what it's about, right? It's not just about understanding a word, but it's about making it part of your active vocabulary. All right, I will stop blabbering on and start reading the story. So the title is the same. All right, are we ready? Let's go. Chapter 1, The Rejection. In 1988, Paulo Coelho walked out of a small publishing house in Rio de Janeiro with a manuscript pressed tightly against his chest. The Alchemist, his most personal work, had just been rejected. Too strange, one editor had said. Too spiritual. Nobody wants this kind of story anymore. Outside, the afternoon sun burned over the street. Vendors shouted, cars passed. Life went on as if nothing had happened. But inside him, something had shifted. He remembered a line he had written himself. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. He had believed those words when he wrote them. Now they felt distant, like a whisper from a dream that was starting to fade. At 40 years old, Coelho was no stranger to disappointment. He had wandered through life, a lyricist, a dreamer, a seeker, always trying to make sense of the invisible thread pulling him forward. But this rejection cut deep. Still, as he walked home that day, he made a quiet promise to himself. If no one wanted to publish The Alchemist, he would keep writing anyway. He didn't know it yet, but that book, the one dismissed as too spiritual, would go on to sell more than 65 million copies and be translated into over 80 languages. It was the story of a shepherd searching for treasure, but really it was the story of a man searching for himself, just like Paulo. Chapter 2, The Boy Who Refused to Be Normal. Long before The Alchemist, long before fame, Paulo Coelho was a boy who didn't fit. Born in 1947 in Rio de Janeiro, he grew up in a strict Catholic household where obedience was prized above imagination. His father was an engineer, logical and disciplined. His mother, loving but cautious. Paulo, however, dreamed of writing stories, not equations. When he told his parents he wanted to be a writer, they thought he had lost his mind. They told him the world didn't need dreamers. It needed doctors, lawyers, engineers. So they did what they thought was best. They had him institutionalized. He was just a teenager, scared, confused, and misunderstood when the white walls of the hospital closed around him. He tried to explain that he wasn't sick. He just wanted to live differently. He would be committed 3 times before being released for good. Years later, when he wrote about following one's personal legend, those words came from a place of truth. He knew what it felt like to be silenced for hearing a voice that no one else could. While other boys prepared for university, Paulo searched for meaning. He tried law school but dropped out. He joined the Brazilian counterculture, wrote lyrics for rock songs, explored mysticism, and read everything he could about faith, rebellion, and destiny. He was lost, but in a way that would later help millions of people find themselves. Chapter 3, The Road to Himself. In 1986, Paulo Coelho found himself on a dusty road in northern Spain, walking alone toward Santiago de Compostela. It was not a trip he had planned. It was something he felt he needed to do, though he could not explain why. The journey stretched over 500 miles. Some days were filled with laughter and stories with other travellers. Others were silent, exhausting, and deeply lonely. But through that silence, something began to awaken in him. He started to notice signs, small, almost invisible moments that felt like messages. A stranger's kindness, a sudden change in weather, the rhythm of his own footsteps. They were not miracles exactly, but they reminded him that life was speaking, if only he would listen. On that pilgrimage, Coelho began to understand what he later called omens. The universe, he realized, is always whispering to us. The problem is that most of us are too busy, too afraid, or too distracted to hear it. He wrote about the journey in his book, The Pilgrimage, which marked the beginning of his transformation, not just as a writer, but as a man. He had spent years trying to find meaning through rebellion, success, and failure, but walking alone through Spain, he learned that peace does not arrive when you reach the destination. It begins the moment you decide to walk. Chapter 4. The Universe Conspires. When Paulo returned to Brazil, he was no longer the same man. The pilgrimage had changed him. He began to write with purpose, not to impress or rebel, but to express what he had discovered along the road. In a small apartment, he wrote The Alchemist in just 2 weeks. It was simple, honest, and full of the wisdom he had learned while walking to Santiago. He believed it would touch people's hearts. But when the book was published, only a few hundred copies were sold. His publisher lost faith in him and ended the contract. It could have ended there. Paulo had every reason to give up. He was 40 and still struggling to make a living from his words. Yet something inside told him to continue. He trusted that inner voice that had guided him for so long. A year later, a new publisher took a chance on the forgotten manuscript. Slowly, readers began to share it with others. A teacher gave it to a student. A friend passed it to another friend. The book spread quietly, like a secret being whispered across the world. Soon it was translated into dozens of languages, then hundreds. From small villages to crowded cities, people began to see their own dreams reflected in the shepherd's journey. Paulo's story had become everyone's story, and the universe, which once seemed silent, now echoed with his words. Chapter 5. The Language of the Heart. Fame arrived quietly, almost shyly, as if it knew he had waited a long time for it. But when it came, Paulo Coelho met it with calm. He no longer felt the need to prove anything. He continued to write every morning, keeping to a simple routine. He would walk, reflect, and listen to the world around him. He believed that inspiration was not something to chase, but something to invite through stillness. Critics often dismissed his books for being too simple or too sentimental. They said he wrote for dreamers, not thinkers. Yet he understood something they did not. The deepest truths do not need to be complex. They only need to be sincere. Through stories like Veronica Decides to Die, Breda, and The Valkyries, He kept exploring the same question that had followed him since childhood. What does it mean to live a life that is truly your own? For Coelho, success was not measured by awards or money. It was measured by how many people rediscovered faith in themselves through his words. He saw writing as an act of service, a way to remind people that they too have a calling, even if the world tells them to ignore it. He once said that every person speaks a universal language, a language of the heart. It is the voice that guides us when reason fails, the quiet compass that never stops pointing toward who we are meant to become. Lessons learned. Lesson 1. Your calling will often sound unreasonable to others. When Paulo told his parents he wanted to be a writer, they thought he was ill. When he released The Alchemist, publishers thought it was foolish. The voices around him said no, but his heart kept saying yes. Sometimes the world misunderstands those who hear a different rhythm. Lesson 2. The path only becomes clear once you start walking. He did not find clarity by thinking about writing. He found it by writing. He did not find faith by waiting for signs. He found it by taking the first step along the road to Santiago. The journey reveals its purpose only when you begin. Lesson 3. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. Every rejection, every mistake, every lost year gave Coelho the material he needed to understand human struggle. Without the walls of the hospital, the confusion, and the doubt, his stories would not have carried such compassion. Lesson 4. Simplicity carries more truth than perfection. Critics looked for complexity, but readers found honesty. Coelho showed that the most powerful messages are often the clearest ones. What matters is not how cleverly something is written, but how deeply it speaks to the heart. Lesson 5. The universe listens when you do. The more he trusted life, the more life responded. He learned that faith is not about controlling outcomes, but about staying open to what unfolds. When you listen to your own heart, you become part of something larger than yourself. Final message. Paulo Coelho's story is not only about a writer who became famous. It is about a man who chose to believe in the invisible. He believed that dreams carry meaning, that mistakes can become teachers, and that each of us is guided by a quiet force waiting to be heard. His life reminds us that faith is not about certainty, but about trust. You do not need to see the whole path before taking the first step. You only need the courage to move. Like the shepherd in The Alchemist, he discovered that the treasure he was seeking had been with him all along. The universe may whisper only once, softly and without promise, but if you have the patience to listen, it will always lead you home. Right, if you're still watching, guys, well done, and thank you for listening. I have a lot of Paulo Coelho's books. I'll show you these ones. Oh! And I think he's a fantastic writer. And I read the book, The Alchemist, when I was quite young. And I guess it's only until recently where the story really touched me. You know, I wanted to be a YouTuber 19 years ago, if you can believe that. I mean, I wanted a YouTube channel. But I eventually started to listen to that voice and that calling, that some of us have. And I don't know where this channel will go. I just know that it's what I need to do now. And this is what I want to share with the world. And yeah, there's a lot of truth in the lessons I find, you know. Again, when I started my YouTube channel, many people thought it was a joke and laughed at me, but I knew I had to keep going. And again, I didn't know where this path was going to lead. I still don't know where it's going to lead, but I could only see the path once I started, right? The other things, yeah, failure. If this fails, my YouTube channel, it's okay. I will still keep going if that's my calling and that's what I feel I need to do and give to the world. But yeah, failure is definitely part of success, and I know that now. Simplicity carries more truth than perfection. I should definitely learn this one because I am a perfectionist and I try to make everything perfect, but that's not always the case. Anyway, I guess I should stop the video now. If you're still here, let me know in the comments and write something like, I did it. Then I really know you watched till the end. All right, I'm going to go, but thank you for watching. Make sure you get the resources. They will help you. And I'll see you in another video. Thanks for spending your time with me today. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye.